2, 3, 5.
Welcome everyone to Discover This. Today we're in Las Vegas on the Strip, and we got a little bit of rock and roll history for you involving Jim Morrison. So let's get to it. Well, in 1964, the first rock and roll club in Las Vegas opened, Pussycat A Go-Go. It was here at Las Vegas Boulevard and Spring Mountain Road, where the Palazzo sits now. The Pussycat was the place to go see a great rock and roll concert. It had dance floors, fairly low profile, and musicians went there, car dealers, showgirls, Vegas entertainers. Paul Revere and the Raiders played there. Arthur Lee and Love played there. Sly and the Family Stone played at the Pussycat for 3 months, just after they signed to Epic Records. In fact, in their days off from the Pussycat, they would go record their debut album. Frequently other musicians would come and check out who was playing at the Pussycat, like Ike and Tina Turner, Bobby Darin, James Brown. One of the hottest bands to play at the Pussycat was a band called Stark Naked and the Car Thieves. And they played the Pussycat many times between 1967, 68, and then again in 1971, which is the year the club finally closed. So right on this corner, where that electric sign is, right on the corner, that's basically where the Pussycat sat. This intersection didn't go through, that road didn't go down that way, underneath that bridge. Now those of you that know Jim Morrison trivia know that Jim Morrison was arrested 6 times during his life. First time was in 1963 at Florida State University, where he was arrested for drunken disorderly conduct. Then there was the time he was arrested in 1967 in New Haven, Connecticut for taunting the police, and the famous or infamous arrest in 1970 in Miami-Dade County for indecent exposure. Well, in 1968, Jim Morrison was arrested here in Las Vegas at the Pussycat A Go-Go. See, when Jim Morrison was in LA, he would often visit his friend, author Robert Gover. And Gover would always try and talk Jim Morrison into going to Las Vegas for a few days to hang out. Finally, during one visit in January 1968, Jim said okay. He reportedly said he'd never been to Las Vegas before, which isn't entirely true because the Doors had played the Las Vegas Convention Center in 1967, just a few months before his New Haven, Connecticut arrest. So Jim Morrison, Robert Gover, and Gover's girlfriend all headed to Las Vegas. Pamela Corson, Jim's girlfriend, was supposed to go, but her and Jim got into a big argument right before they left, so Pam stayed home. On January 28, 1968, the trio had dinner in Las Vegas, and after dinner decided to go to the Pussycat A Go-Go. Rumor has it that Jim wanted to see Stark Naked and the Car Thieves, who had a great reputation as a live act. Well, they get to the Pussycat, and that's just happened to be the band's night off. So the trio are cooling their heels in the parking lot of the Pussycat, figuring out their next move. Jim lights up a cigarette and starts smoking it like a joint. The bouncer at the Pussycat wasn't having it, so he told Jim to knock it off. And Jim, of course, started mouthing off and taunting the bouncer, telling the bouncer to kick his ass and all that stuff. So the bouncer whipped out a billy club and clubbed Jim Morrison upside the head, opening up a cut. The police were called, and Jim Morrison was arrested for being drunk in public and disturbing the peace, and so was Robert Gover. Well, the taunting he gave the bouncer didn't stop when the police got there. In fact, it ramped up. And Jim started taunting the police, yelling profanities and really going at it, to the point that by the time they got to the jail, the police got in Jim's ear and told him that they'd be waiting for him after their shift ended. Robert Gover's girlfriend was able to bail them both out before that happened. Now, the Doors came back to Las Vegas in October of 1969 for a show at the Ice Palace. If you watched our video on that old venue of the Ice Palace, we talked about that show and the fact that the sheriff at the time tried to stop the show. See, the sheriff was not a fan of Jim Morrison and his blatant disregard for authority. The DA got involved and said the sheriff had no right to stop the show since all the proper permits were in place. So the show did happen and it went off without a hitch. So that's the story of Jim Morrison's arrest in Las Vegas. One of the 6 he had throughout the country.
Ah, one more thing.
Now if you go to the bar Hogs and Heifers, which is just off the Fremont Street, down in the downtown area. If you go in there, they have a framed copy of Jim Morrison's arrest report and his booking photo hanging on the wall. So you can go check that out. So that's going to do it, everyone, for our Jim Morrison story here in Las Vegas for his arrest. I appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time on Discover This.